Welcome to the Jill on Money Show. It is Sunday, June 11th, and today we are airing a second part of our special video interview with Jeanna Smialek. She is a writer at the New York Times. She covers the Federal Reserve and the economy. And when we interviewed her, she had just published this great new book about the Federal Reserve called Limitless. It was a great deep dive into the history of the Federal Reserve and some very funny connections that some officials have with Fed officials of the past. It was just, I really found it illuminating. Again, this is an interview that you can watch in its entirety through our new service called Jill on Money Live. That's where you have access to quarterly live webinars and special bonus content like this interview with Jeanna Smialek. Today, this snippet of our interview really does focus on how the Federal Reserve leaving interest rates so low for so long created some bizarre incentives and massive risks in the system. So here's our interview, or part of our interview, with Jeanna Smialek. So I'm wondering, from your perspective, as you were reporting on the Fed, I know that you have been covering this in the Times, that there was a real fear that low interest rates for so long created asset bubbles, and that when the Fed did finally start raising rates last year, that there could be unintended consequences. So now we're in 2023, and here are the unintended consequences. Was that something that was raised to you as a potential pitfall of raising rates so quickly?
Yeah, I think that this was a big concern. And I think actually when people blame the Fed for being slow to react to the inflation and being slow to diagnose the inflation, this is the main thing they will point to. It's not that, oh, had you reacted earlier, you would have definitely solved the inflation and we wouldn't be in this situation. Most economists won't tell you that. They don't think that's true. But many economists will tell you, if you had recognized the inflation earlier, had you diagnosed it sooner, we wouldn't have had to move this fast. And had we not moved this fast, there would be less chance of a financial problem. Because it is the case that when you adjust interest rates, all of finance is built on the back of those interest rates. And you can cause, it's one of those situations where the tide is going out and you're going to see who's swimming naked, to quote the famous expression on this. And so I think we're clearly at that moment now. It's the bank issues aren't all about interest rates, but certainly the one that kicked them off, the Silicon Valley Bank collapse, that was very much a bad interest rate bet and bad risk management that led to that bank's demise.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because one of the other jobs of the Federal Reserve is a regulatory or supervisory role. So people are really now coming down hard on the San Francisco Fed, whose portfolio includes the Silicon Valley Bank, and that they missed something potentially, and that there is a real concern that Randy Quarles, the former head of supervision at the Fed, was instrumental in watering down some of the rules in 2018, and that really did contribute to this. What's your view on that thesis?
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of reporting on this, and I think that it is definitely the case that some of the changes that happened under Vice Chair Quarles' leadership could have potentially mattered in the case of Silicon Valley Bank. I think most fundamentally, those changes were a little bit soft and squishy. It wasn't the sort of, hard and fast changes he made to ratios or any of the specific rules that mattered. It was the changes he made to supervision. So he made supervision much sort of more rigid, much less discretionary. He took away a lot of the ability of individual supervisors who are in these banks to say like, oh, hey, like, I don't like what you're doing. If it didn't fit a rubric, that was much less likely. So I think that could have potentially mattered quite a bit. I think one thing that's a bit of a challenge here is sort of where you place that blame, because it has certainly become the attractive narrative to blame it on San Francisco Fed. But I think it's important to note that banking supervision is what the Fed calls a delegated authority, which means that it actually belongs to the Fed board. And then the regional banks do it sort of at the discretion of the Fed board. And so it's a joint project. It's very integrated. It was sort of the whole group here sort of missed this. It was the board and the San Francisco Fed together.
If you want to see the whole Jeanna Smialek interview, subscribe to our new service, Jill on Money Live, and you'll check it out. While you're on our website, don't forget you can sign up for the free weekly newsletter. You can check out the blog. You can see the resources section. All of it is there. Lift someone up. Change your work, change your wealth, change your life. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow.